I'm Pete Kaiser, born and raised in Bethel, Alaska, and I've been running dogs my whole life. Just recently, in the last 10 to 12 years, been racing professionally, and it's become basically a lifestyle for me. It's what we do day in and day out, 365 days a year. Um, so the dogs are a huge part of our family, and everything revolves around the mushing lifestyle. So my parents are Ron and Janet Kaiser. My mom's originally from Bethel. My dad's from Kansas. My grandmother on my mom's side originally from Bethel as well, and my great grandmother originally from Quinnahock. Her name was Katie Hately. She actually married a guy, a Scottish guy that was came up through the gold rush days and was a miner and traveled by dog team delivering mail all over the state. So we have some interesting family history there with some ties to stuff I'm doing now as far as traveling by dog team and living kind of an outdoor type lifestyle. My great grandfather Alex met my grandma Katie here in Bethel. They started what's known as the Fox Farm here in Bethel. They raised foxes, and so they had kind of that whole outdoor animal lifestyle as well as having sled dogs and traveling all over the state with sled dogs. So a lot of family history throughout the Bethel area and up and down the Kuskokwim River. So my inspiration for training and racing sled dogs came from my father, who, like I said, came up from Kansas and got interested in dog mushing in the 80s as the Kuskokwim 300 was becoming a thing and just starting off. There was a lot of excitement around that race, and my dad got heavily involved in mushing the K300 and other local races. He was partnered up with a friend of his whose name's Bill Eisenbart, and between the two of them growing up, I heard lots of dog racing stories and training stories, and so it was always kind of on my mind. And my mom managed the K300 in the early 90s, so we were always around the race and involved in the race and hearing stuff about mushing and seeing all these cool pro mushers that came out to Bethel every year was inspiring. And but my dad really got me into it, and when I was older and me and my sister were older, he got back into sled dogs with a dog or two where we could tootle around on the tundra, and it turned into 3 dogs to 5 dogs. And then in high school I kind of got hooked on it and ran some bigger races, and that after high school I kind of decided I wanted to really try and make a go at doing it as a lifestyle and racing as competitively as I possibly could. So now we've been fully immersed in it since 2008 pretty much. Yeah, so the competition aspect of running dogs is kind of what motivates me to go out and train every day. Without competition and races, it would be hard to go out and put the same amount of mileage on the dogs that we do on a normal training year. So to have those races and goals set to do well in races is what motivates you to get out and put those training miles in. We've been fortunate now to have run a lot of races. I don't even know off the top of my head how many races I've run. We've done 12 Iditarods, I believe, and I think, or this is going to be my 12th Iditarod, and we just did our 13th K300. So we've done quite a bit in a short amount of time. I've done 4 Kobuk 440s, some other races around the state. It's really given me an awesome opportunity to meet tons of new people I would have never met if I wasn't doing this. Made friends all over the state, made friends up in Kotzebue, I've made friends in other parts of the state. So it's really opened the doors to just meeting a lot of really neat people and, stuff once I'm done mushing down the line, people I'll never forget and memories that'll stick around forever. My first race, I don't really remember any specific memory. I'm sure it was like a 1 dog race down on the river. The Cusco 300 sponsored a lot of kids races back in the day. We'd do 1 dog, 3 dog, 5 dog races, and I worked my way up through those races. But I'm sure I started at the 1 dog level, and honestly, I don't. It was so long ago. I was probably 5 or 6 or 7 or something, and I don't have any specific memory. But obviously, whatever happened there with those first races worked because it hooked me. Yeah, so my first K300 win in 2015 was kind of the culmination of not just my own thoughts and planning and dreams, but I think a lot of other people's too. And I really felt that at the finish line. It was a really special moment for not just me and the team, but everybody who had helped me, my parents, my family, friends, and sponsors. and the whole community that showed up down at the finish line to kind of take part in that, it really felt like everybody was involved in it and everybody enjoyed it and everybody felt a sense of pride and accomplishment in that happening. It had been a long time since a local had won the race, since Myron Anksman won it in the early 80s. And I think the whole idea behind some of his vision with the K300 and some of the shorter races was to build local teams up throughout these shorter races to where they could compete in the K300 and eventually hopefully win it. And it hadn't happened yet. Some people had gotten close, but there wasn't a strong. It I think people were probably unsure if it would happen, if a local would ever win the K300 again. And once it happened, it was a real special moment for the whole region. So that definitely will stick in my mind forever. My first Cusco win really set the stage for the excitement and the enthusiasm, and I think people finally thought, well, maybe we can have a Iditarod champion from around here. And so then my first Cusco win was followed by several more, and we weren't able to get an Iditarod win. There was a lot of, there was a lot of really hoping for that, and some disappointment in there too. Obviously, anybody that has a team that can win the Cusco has a team that can win Iditarod, and we weren't able to pull that off for a few years after we had gained a few more Cusco wins. And then in 2019, it all came together, and it really felt like perfect timing. I mean, obviously I would have preferred to win sooner, but it felt like perfect timing with just the excitement and the momentum that we had built throughout the whole region and the community and up and down the river. People were really hoping for something like that, and I really felt that same feeling at the finish line in Nome that I felt in Bethel for my first K300 win. And it's just an exciting time for the whole region, and I think the whole state really enjoyed it, and just, yeah, a really magical thing. And I was super more proud of not my own accomplishment, but being able to provide that excitement and enthusiasm for other people was probably the thing that I'll remember the most out of it all. My success has been just part of a huge puzzle, and that whole puzzle revolves around all the support I have. This would never be possible with just myself and the dogs. That's obviously a part of it, but the community support I've had, my family standing behind me, and everybody else that motivates me has been a huge part of how this has all come together to result in doing well and winning Cusco titles and being able to win Iditarod. And a key to a lot of that has been support from Donlin Gold. They've supported me for many years now. None of this would be possible without any one of these pieces of the puzzle coming together, and Donlin has been a huge part of our puzzle, and we're very appreciative to them for their support, and not only just to me, but to the race, to the Iditarod. They've been a big supporter of the Iditarod, and that means a lot to me. It means a lot to other mushers. Iditarod is one of those things that, it needs support from Alaska-based companies, and so Donlin Gold has been huge help for them. They've been a huge help for me. And yeah, any one of these pieces of the puzzle falls out of place, and this thing doesn't work the way it does. And so I'm very, very appreciative to Donlin and what they've done for us. Safety is a very important aspect while running a race like the Iditarod, and not just running a race like the Iditarod, but just the countless. We actually put more miles in training out alone on the trail during the year than we do during the Iditarod. In the Iditarod, you have checkpoints and there's people around, there's other teams around, and in training, we do 2,000 to 3,000 miles of training out on the tundra by ourselves. So safety is definitely, you have to take safety very importantly. We don't necessarily have a checklist, but we have a routine that we do every time, and you got to have the right gear on. If it's, you look at the weather forecast and you plan for that. Face masks, mittens, parkas, all the same gear every time. And sometimes even in Iditarod, you have to plan for crazy weather like rain or 40 above. So we carry stuff like rain gear just in case. It sounds crazy, but we run into some really crazy weather out there. So you really got to be prepared for anything from 50 below to 40 above. And for me, just making sure I have all that stuff has just been basically a routine for me. I don't have a piece of paper that I go down every time, but we do the same thing every time so many times that it's just a routine for me. And I think if you have a safe routine and you follow that routine every time, you're likely going to stay out of trouble. When I'm getting ready to leave a checkpoint, we rely on a routine every time, and you get so tired and so sleep deprived in a race like Iditarod that you really have to have a routine and something where you're just going through the motions every time, because you don't want to be coming up with new things every time, and because your mind is so tired, you want to just have this muscle memory of doing the same thing. So getting ready to leave a checkpoint is usually the same thing. I come out from, if we have a checkpoint building where I was able to get a quick nap or eat some food, I come out, I check on the dogs, we put their booties on, we'll probably offer them a snack. We get them up off the straw and hook their tug lines up. I check my sled. If I have to change my runner plastic, I change runner plastic. We pack our sled accordingly for the next run based on how far it is to the next checkpoint, if we're going to be camping on the trail or if it's going to be a straight run to the next checkpoint. We pack enough food for the dogs to safely get to the next spot. And with enough food for me, I make sure my thermoses are full of hot water, hot juice, coffee, whatever I need for that next run. And it's just kind of the same routine every time. And that way, like I said before, you have this mental checklist of what you've done. And you do that enough times, and it's really hard to forget something because you're so into that routine. And now, after years and years of doing this, we modify it a little bit every year, but it's basically the same routine, and it helps you work efficiently when your mind is tired. Our checkpoint preparation is helped by the fact that we send out all our, we call them food drops or dog food drops. They're sent prepackaged stuff that the mushers themselves put together. It's sent out weeks in advance, and they're put out at the checkpoint. So when we get to a checkpoint, we have everything in our bags, anywhere from 50 to 150 pounds of mainly dog food, but also booties and food for myself and drinks for myself. It's all there, and it's all as efficiently sliced and packaged as it possibly can be, so that there's no extra work that needs to be done at the checkpoint. Anything that's going to be any type of dog food that's going to be thawed with hot water is cut up very thinly and finely, so that when you pour hot water on it, it's melting in 10 or 15 minutes, and you're not sitting there in the cold trying to chop up a huge block of meat that's wasted effort. So anyway, a lot of the prep for the race goes into the food drops before the race. And so when that stuff's out in the checkpoints, it's all efficiently sliced up, and it takes very little effort to feed the dogs. I mean, it takes some effort, but as little effort as we can have out there, which really simplifies things and allows me to take care of the dogs quicker, which means I can get in the checkpoint and rest myself quicker, and everything works better that way. Yeah, so the drop bags are all prepared weeks before the race, usually a month. They're usually due in first week of February-ish, so about a month before the race starts. And that's a big undertaking. It's about a week straight of cutting up. A lot of our meat comes in 50-pound blocks or 15-pound blocks, and it's all run through a bandsaw and sliced up. If it's like I said, it's all sliced up small and efficiently. And then it's all packaged into each individual bag that's labeled, and then it's packaged into bigger bags, and then that's all loaded into the truck and brought out to the airport, kept frozen the whole time, because sometimes it can get kind of warm, and that's all shipped to Anchorage and then delivered by truck in Anchorage to the location where it's all sorted by volunteers and then shipped out again in bush planes to all the checkpoint locations. So it's a huge process, and it's kind of one of those kind of hidden things behind the scenes that happens, but that's a huge part of Iditarod, and once you've got your food drops done, it feels like there's a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. You got a few weeks left to train, and it's kind of all feels downhill from there. So racing is a way to test our skills, really. It's a way to test what we've trained for all year. If we didn't have an opportunity to race, we would be training all year and not knowing how we stack up against another team. And to me, it wouldn't be as exciting. I need that motivation to train, something to train for. So every year we try to improve and get better at what we're doing. And the races are the proving ground for that. So we get to test all our new theories and all our training and our dog team and our skills and all our decision making when you get to race. So that's what motivates me to keep training, is the competition. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm a competitive person, so I enjoy the competition side of it. The training can get a little monotonous after a while, and it's exciting to finally get in a race and test your skills against other people's. Yeah, it's neat to train around here and grow up around here. We have, like I said, we have family history and ties to this area, and Bethel can be a real bugger sometimes when it comes to training. We've had low snow years. We get a lot of crazy weather out here. We get a lot of wind. Um, and I spent some time in Nenana training. This is interesting. Spent some time in Nenana training, and they have beautiful trails and snow and less wind and all that nice stuff that you'd imagine having. And I remember coming back home for the Cusco 300 after being up there for about 2 months and going out on the tundra and just being able to see that wide open expanse and get that 15, 20 mile an hour cold wind in your face. For some reason, I'd never had appreciated it so much until then, from being gone for a few months and coming back and just being able to, yeah, I've come to really enjoy being able to see for miles. I like the wide open country. It's what I'm used to. I certainly like mushing in nice wooded trails too at time to time, but this is what I grew up around, and this is what we're used to and what we're comfortable doing. So I really feel connected to this area and the wide open places and the wind that can be a pain in the butt sometimes. My kids have both been very involved in our racing in our dog yard. They've enjoyed watching me leave for runs. They like to watch the dogs out the window from the house, play and interact with each other. They're always there in the window when I get home from a run. So they really enjoy it. My son Ari's 8 now, so he's seen quite a bit. He's been at the finish line of every race I've done pretty much, and the start line. So our family's very involved. Ari's starting to run a few dogs at a time now. He started with one dog a couple years ago, and now he's up to two. And his sister, my daughter Ailey, rides in the sled with him. She's just 3, so but she really enjoys it. I took him on a 20-mile run earlier this year, and Ari was a little bored after a few miles, but Ailey was really into it and really, so I'm not sure where they'll go with it. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you want to get your kids hooked on something like dog mushing, just because it's such an involving sport and lifestyle. But I'll support them with whatever they decide to do, and we'll just see how it goes with their interest level in it. And Ari gets excited around race time and says he can't wait to race races, and I know Ailey's interested in it too. So we'll just see how it goes with them. It's not a sport that's for everybody, but obviously they get a front row seat to the whole show, and if they decide to want to be a dog musher at some level or a full-blown level, then I'll support whatever they decide they want to do. A memory that sticks out the most to me is my first Cusco win. Certainly, it was definitely the biggest leap my career took. It kind of catapulted us into several more Cusco wins and eventually an Iditarod win. So. And like I mentioned, just the whole community being involved in that and everybody up and down the river, feeling a part of that win was what was so special about it. And I've had lots of other special moments in racing. Obviously, winning the Iditarod was super special. And, I could go back to some of my first races like the Akiak Dash that really got me hooked on dogs. But definitely that first Cusco win was like, I felt a weight off my shoulders with that I didn't feel with other stuff, and just having the community so excited and happy was a huge part of that. So that's probably my biggest moment, was that first Cusco win in 2015. A memory from the trail that really stands out in my mind over the years, I think it was my second Cusco 2010. It was a super bitter cold start. It was probably 35, 40 below wind chill at the start. Not a lot of snow. I mean, very little snow, so mostly a glare ice course. And we took off in the dark, of course, because it starts in the evening, and we were mushing into this 40 below wind chill headwind on glare ice all the way up to Tulaksak. And Knick Construction, one of my former employers, was doing a runway project up there, and they were doing some winter work hauling material from a sandbar out in front of town back to the runway. And it was just the weirdest scene I've ever mushed through. The trail went right next to this sandbar, and with the wind blowing and the light plants that they had set up and the equipment working, they were, like I said, it was bitter, bitter cold, and they were slinging sand with excavators and trucks out on this sandbar, and with the sand and stuff blowing through these big bright lights and mushing next to this, it was kind of like I felt like it was a scene out of Transformers or something. And hard to explain, but you don't get to mush through those scenes very often when you're out in the middle of the night, it kind of in a very remote area, and all of a sudden you mush through this like construction project with blowing sand and bitter cold and ice. And so it was very strange, and that picture is always stuck in my mind as one of the strangest things I've seen on the trail. A memory from the trail that probably stands out as being the most intense or even borderline scary and wild was definitely the 2014 Iditarod, going down the Dalzell Gorge and then the first 15 to 20 miles out of Roan, which ended up being 3 to 4 hours of mushing in some of the craziest conditions I've ever mushed. Basically, you go up from Rainy Pass up to the top of the crest of Rainy Pass, which is 3,000 something feet, I believe. And then you drop down the Dalzell Gorge at a very quick rate. And with good snow, it can be challenging. And this year they had a big melt and there was literally no snow. And then actually got a little bit of rain that froze on top of the dirt, which made for just about impossible dog driving conditions. And we basically kamikazed down the Dalzell Gorge, borderline out of control the whole time. I've never been so tired or stressed, or my arms were so full of blood from hanging on and maneuvering around all the trees and obstacles and rocks and boulders. And when we finally got to Roan, it felt like the worst of it was over, and we quickly grabbed some supplies and went through Roan to go camp on the trail. And it actually ended up being another 2 hours of just horrendous up and down roller coaster of a ride. There was no resistance for the runners because of this little layer of ice on top of the dirt, and the dogs had great footing, and they kind of knew they had my number, and they were just rolling and wanted to go fast. And it made for some that's really a technical part of the trail anyway. There's stumps, there's trees, it's an old burned area, so there's just lots of obstacles to navigate. And that was I have never been so tired after a run in my life. It was about 3.5 hours of intense. And when we got to our camping spot, I was just like, I was so drenched in sweat and so tired and so like relieved that the tough part was over. And it wasn't just me, it was everybody. Their sleds were mangled, people's bodies were mangled. There was sprained ankles and broken bones, and it was a very difficult run, one I wish to never do again. I've very rarely been fearful on a dog sled, and that was one of the times I was really fearful. So it was a wild ride. My respect and relationship with the dogs is, the better the relationship and the better the bond you have with your team, the more that they're going to be willing to do for you. And they're naturally born extremely willing athletes. They want to run, they want to go, they love to do it. But the more trust you can put in them with your decision making, the more comfortable they are when you say, okay, we're going to go do another run, or we're going to do this. They always have it in their mind that he's never made a bad choice for us. The respect goes both ways. I need to respect their abilities, and they need to respect and trust my driving abilities. And when you can get on the same page with them, that's when you start to see special things. But the stuff that they can do is amazing. And once you've got a really nice team like I have, and the right training, and you've learned a few things over the years, they can do some stuff still that just kind of blows my mind. Like just in this K300 a week ago or 2 weeks ago, there was times where they were just in such a groove, and I'm just going, wow, it's just unreal what they can do and what they're happy to do. And you know, it's mind blowing sometimes. They're just amazing animals. So yeah, a lot of our training is focused around them gaining my trust and me gaining their trust. And that's why we do 6.5, 7 months of training. And it's not just that, that's just this year. That trust is built over the summer months and just hanging out with them in the summer, all the past years of training them. It's all comes together as the dogs get older and more mature and I learn more. And the more we're on the same page and the more I know what they're thinking, then they know what I'm thinking, that works out better. We can make better decisions for what they need, and it helps us move down the trail faster. A great team depends on great gear, equipment, dog food, all that stuff is helped by great sponsors, and Donlin's been a huge part of our program for years. This is a very expensive sport, especially living in Bush, Alaska. A lot of stuff has to get flown in from Anchorage or Wasilla or Palmer, which adds extra fees to everything. And it really requires a top level supplies, harnesses, dog food, all the right meats and fats that go into powering these dogs down the trail, top of the line sleds, my own mushing gear, my parkas, my equipment, all that stuff. All that stuff is expensive, and all that stuff is required to be a top musher. It takes a lot of money and a lot of effort to do this, and we're very thankful that Donlin Gold's been part of our team and help us get to where we're at. The Donlin Project opens the door for many opportunities for young kids around here, and I've spent time trying to motivate kids and help kids kind of set goals and see where their futures are headed, and to have something to work towards. And the more opportunities that they have available to them, the more they can set goals and dream and think and have a vision as to what they want to do. It's just like I mentioned with my racing. Without the opportunity to go run a race, I wouldn't have the motivation to go train 3,000 miles every year. You wouldn't have this end goal of, that's what I'm striving for. I want to go prove myself in the race. So the more opportunities that are offered around here, the more doors it opens for people, and the more goals people can set and work hard towards them. You have to have something you're working towards to motivate yourself. And if you don't have that motivation, it's hard to do anything without motivation. So the more opportunities, the better. The skills and experience that I'm hoping to pass on to my kids are hard work, determination, and not giving up when you have an idea or a dream in your mind of something that you want to accomplish. And especially something like, winning the Iditarod, which didn't come in a short amount of time. It was a thought that was in my head as a kid and as a teenager, and then as I started working towards it, it took almost 10 or 11 years of directly running dogs and training towards that goal. So I just I'd like to instill in them those qualities: hard work, setting goals, basically the things I talk to other kids about, and just being persistent and not giving up on your dreams. And everybody can set a goal, and if you're hard-headed enough and persistent enough, you're going to eventually reach that goal. And even if it takes a long time, a lot of times that just means it's that much more rewarding in the end when you reach that goal. If it takes you 10 minutes to do something, it doesn't feel that exciting when you get the job done. When it takes you 10 years to do something, it feels like a real sense of accomplishment. And I think people need to understand that the longer it takes and the harder it is to do something, the better it's going to feel in the end, and the bigger it's going to be in their lives. So it's an important factor. To train and raise a dog team for something like Iditarod, and especially to be competitive in something like Iditarod, takes 1,000 little puzzle pieces. I'm a part of the puzzle, the dogs are a part of the puzzle, the training's part of the puzzle, the nutrition's part of the puzzle, our gear's part of the puzzle, my family, my support system, the community, and especially our sponsors are all part of this giant puzzle that every piece has to mesh perfectly to come up with something like an Iditarod win. And I'm fortunate to have a lot of those pieces in place every year. We've been able to be competitive at a high level with all those pieces coming together. And one of the biggest parts of those pieces over the years has been Donlin Gold and the support that they've shown me. It's allowed me to free up my time to just focus on the dogs and the training. To have their support has been crucial. So thank you to Donlin Gold for your years of support, and we really appreciate it.